Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Buzzabout Golf. I'm the Buzz Woman herself, Megan, and this is the Buzzman, Steve. So how this is going to work is each time we're going to have a different topic that we cover. And today's topic is how to take your game from the practice tee onto the first tee.
Yeah, and I think it's something that sounds really simple. And I think sometimes in other sports, it's kind of just nerves, isn't it? Like, can I do it under pressure? Whereas golf, because we practice in an environment that's so different to the golf course, sometimes it can be a million one different reasons. And sometimes you can feel great. Like you must have had it. I used to get it before events where you do a practice session the night before, you feel awesome. You go to bed really happy, then you get to the first tee, and then everything just seems to go
I know.
wrong.
Have you all had that before where, and you are able to use that chat feature below. So feel free to type in at any point today, ask any questions during the Zoom call. But, if you've ever had that experience where you have it on the range and then I see someone responding, yes, yeah, you have it on the range, but for some reason it just can't carry over. That's what today is all about.
So go on, tell us. Let us know. We've been dangling the carrot. Come on, tell us why, Megan.
All right. So I've done some great studying with some excellent we really go and we learn from the best teachers out there, and one of the best mental game people out there is Dr. Rick Jensen, and he has a 4 steps to mastery that he practices, and really people miss the second 2 steps. So that first step is when you go take a lesson, it's that cause and effect understanding, what do I need to change in my technique. Then people usually go to the 4th step, which is playing on the course. Well, they miss the 2 other steps, which, one is supervised practice. Are you doing the changes correctly to the point where you can own it? And then the next step after that is called transfer training. And that's what I think people really need to focus on, is how do I take what I learned and transfer it onto the course. So some, learning some different techniques to do that. And part of it is are you practicing the same way that you play? So most of the time the answer is no. It's very different because we measure it differently. When you're hitting a ball to one set target with the same club, that's really different than when you head to the tee and you have to deal with, a lot of different variables and different playing partners, and you have the scorecard there.
Yeah, and I like that concept of the 4 steps, because golf, more so than any other sport, is so easy to get really, really technical. So if you've had that first step, the first lesson, so think of that first step as just like a technical, it's like taking your car into the garage and you put the diagnostics on, you work out everything that's going wrong. Hopefully some things are going right. But then when you try and take that straight to the course, all of those diagnostics, all of those ideas can kind of get in the way. And I hear that a lot when I give lessons. You say, well, like, this is going to be too much to think about. And it's like, as an instructor, we try to keep it, what do you do? Like 2-3 points in a lesson?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And a lot being like pre-shot fundamentals, and then things that you can control after the swing. So it's not always just during the swing. Simple is better.
Yeah, and then,
for sure.
Then those other 2 steps, it's more about, so let's say you've got 3 ideas. It's how you start to like integrate with the ideas and make them yours. A comment that I make in lessons sometimes is like, when you have that initial technical lesson, you're like renting the information from me.
Definitely.
And those other 2 steps become more about you renting it and it becoming yours.
Yeah, you don't own it yet. Bringing it out of the course, we don't quite own it yet.
And that's not from a monetary standpoint. It's not that I'm trying to hold it back, and but can you get that analogy? And let's say something simple, like I want you to get through the ball more, and I might say, look, you need to push with your legs. But then the more practice you do, instead of you feeling like you have to push through your legs, you might start feeling, well, actually, I feel the sensation of my shoulders opening. So you see it sometimes that those other 2 steps, you're not adding more and more technical information. You actually take those 2 or 3 ideas and you start to shape them into one like really solid swing thought that you can then utilize on the course. And then when you get on the course, you take that one swing idea or maybe 2 swing ideas, and then every time you miss hit one slightly, you don't add another one to it.
Yeah, definitely. Don't just try to fix something with the whatever happened on the last shot. You're just trying to add more. I always say it's like playing Jenga. You pull one block out and the whole thing falls.
And I had a guy, I gave a lesson this afternoon. Really nice guy. He's had some back problems, so he couldn't play for a few months. So confidence is a little low. He's straight back into golf. So it's doing the technical stuff, not only for like performance, but also to like for safety. You know, we can't have him getting injured again. But something that we did is he tends to slice and miss to the right. And then he puts the club slightly closed, which is a fine thing to do, starts hitting it great. But then he hits one to the left and then goes, oh, maybe I should open the face again and put the face to the straight. And can you see how that can happen on the course? So once you have a swing thought, so that's a real simple one. Look, I'm going to just point the club a bit further to the left, more left than I think I need, and I'm going to swing through. As soon as you see one go slightly left, if you then go, right, if I now open the club a little bit, I can now, these ones will go straight. The likelihood is you'll go back into your problem shot.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to do here before we get started, first of all, we want to thank everybody for being here. We really miss all of our clients that aren't able to be down in Bonita Bay. So this gives us a chance to be able to still give some instruction to everybody. And, we appreciate you showing up and showing your support. And we're excited that we'll have this recorded. But let's start with a little poll here. I want to see in this audience that's with us right now, what your answers are to these questions. I'm going to send this poll out right now. The first one being, do you perform better on the driving range or on the golf course? So this should have pulled up onto your screen there. Are you a range warrior or are you a course conqueror? So you'll put your answers in there. Then the next question is going to ask if when you feel like you're under pressure and you're just not performing on the course the way you want, is it because of your technique? Is it your golf skills that's causing that? Is it a physical thing? Maybe your body isn't holding up over the round, or you're just physically getting tired after the round, or is it a mental thing? I mean, mental can cover so many different areas. I mean, this is also, can you deal with the social aspect of golf? But I am curious what everyone has to say. So we'll give you a few more seconds here to get your answers in. We appreciate your contributions there. Excellent. And now let's see. Ooh, got a few more going in. Awesome.
Give people time, Megan. There's probably someone there going, well, I'm not really a range warrior and I'm not a course conqueror. Where am I?
I appreciate Kathy contributing that for number 2, it's technical and mental. Yeah, definitely feel free to put any extra comments in there. I love that. So we're going to end this poll and everyone will be able to see their results there. So the group itself, it looks like 83% of our group. So this is a topic that people need. 83% are range warriors. Why can I get it on the range and it's just not happening on the course? It's interesting to me that 50% think it's technical and 50% are finding it to be mental, unless we include Kathy's. That kind of weighs it, she adds into that as well. Excellent. Now, one thing I just want to point out, because I did see nobody put physical on there. We are so lucky with the club that we have such a great relationship with the fitness staff and the fitness program in general. Steve teaches yoga over there, which I think is really cool, teaching yoga for golfers. And, that aspect can be big, but it does seem like the number 2 that jumped out were technical. And
they are, but I think you do hear a lot of people talk about how they fatigue through the round. And I think sometimes people will feel like they're fatiguing physically because of the mental stresses that they are actually experiencing. One of my biggest pieces of advice on the course, especially from that mental aspect, is it's okay to shut on and shut off. You know, the human body, it's human adult. I think the stat is you can concentrate for about 40 minutes.
Wow, that's given a lot of credit.
Yeah.
I think that's actually pretty high stat.
And I got that. So from all of the research that I've done on my own, I've been around professors. I think I got that stat from my friend who had been caught speeding, and he had to do a driver. In England, you have a driver awareness thing to not get your points. So they sit you in a room and treat you like a child for a few days, I think. But that was the point they were saying. So when you're driving, like if you can only concentrate for 40 minutes. So it's okay to take breaks. It's okay to do this and that. But if you think for golf, we're out there for like 3-4 hours. And it's like when you have a routine, it's having pre-shot routine. And then the post-shot routine, I think, is really important, because if you don't do post-shot routine, you basically put your club back in the bag, you sit down in the cart, and you play the problem over in your head again and again and again. And that is a way to take a situation where you're not actually playing that bad, and then you start trying to alter things and tinker with things. And by the time you get like halfway into the round, all of a sudden the way that you're behaving and the things that you're thinking about are so different to the things that you've started with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that you just said a few words here that kind of jump out to me. One, pre-shot routine, post-shot routine, and then another one that you didn't say is rehearsal swing. And I don't see a lot of people believing in rehearsals or practice swings on the course. And if you don't have a really strong pre-shot routine that's going to get you doing all the right things to set up for success, many times that can lead to that technical breakdown. And I love the post-shot routine, just being able to reflect after you hit your shot. That moment of, you'll see really great tour players do it. They'll take another rehearsal after they hit their shot to give themselves the idea, the vision of what did I want that to do, and just give you a moment to correct it.
Yeah. And it closes that feedback chain. And so many people don't take practice swings.
So many. Yeah. I think it's kind of a thing like people are a little proud of, like, yeah, I don't have time for that.
But like we were doing a few clinics last year, and it was a short game clinic, and we were trying to show how rushing really does, because you hear people say, well, I need tempo in my swing. But I'm a strong believer that tempo happens like right at the beginning of your routine. It happens like the second you get out of the cart. So think about it. If you're trying to be nice and free and flowing and smooth, and then you run over to your ball. And going back to the clinic that we did, we did the clinic back-to-back weeks. We timed my pre-shot routine, and it took 23 seconds. That's where they deciding what to do, doing the practice swing, and then executing.
That's like back behind the ball.
Yeah. That was 23 seconds, and I was talking people through it. So the likelihood is it might be a little bit quicker than that. But let's say even 25 seconds. If you times that by the shots you hit, the number you'll get isn't going to be big enough to be the reason why you're fast or slow.
Yeah.
You'll come up to like a...
So, okay. So like, you got to write that one down. So how do you, times it. So you go...
You've got a calculator. Why would you show the world that my math is really bad?
Okay. I got a calculator, everyone. Here we go. All right. So give me the math here. Sorry to the math whizzes out there. No judgment. Okay. So what do you got?
So round it up. So go 25 seconds.
25 seconds for the pre-shot routine.
And then times it by, so let's say, let's go high. Let's say you shoot 100.
Okay. That's not that high for most of the golfing public. For the golfing population, but okay, 100. Okay.
So now you've got that in seconds.
Okay. Yeah.
So now you need to divide that.
Just by 60 or?
Yeah.
Okay. So 41.
So we've got 41 minutes.
So 41 minutes. All right.
So that's 41 minutes of actually hitting.
Your shot. Yeah, because
and that's with 100 shots. Remember, in those 100, so even if you shoot more than 100 or you shoot lower, there's a lot of like tap-ins and there's stuff that doesn't take that long.
So you guys, you just have to remember, like, you have this round of golf that, you know, you could potentially be out there for 4 hours, and 41 minutes of that time is actually going through your process. And I don't think that's too much to ask, is it, you know, if you're going through, you just have to turn it on at a certain time. We're not saying that you have to be focused for the whole time. And that stress, half the reason why people are struggling out there is there's a tension that's being put on to them by all these extra factors. You know, now I'm keeping score, I'm playing with new people. I think some of you may relate to that there's these extra tensions where if you tell yourself, hey, I only need to put my game face on from the second I cross my decision line, now that 23 seconds of that, you know, decision and commitment. Now,
and can you explain that? So that's like a Vision 54 concept. So you've got play box and you've got think box.
Yeah. So
explain that a bit more.
There's an imaginary line, a decision line. Basically, when you're standing behind your ball deciding what you're going to do, your decision line is just in front of you. And the concept is when I'm back here in my think box, that's where I'm deciding what club I'm going to hit, where the wind's going. I could be chatting up with my friends. All these factors are happening behind this line. The second I cross the decision and commitment line, I need to be 100% committed to the shot that I'm going to do. It could be, you know, just what are you deciding and committing on doing? You know, am I hitting it in there? Like, where's my landing spot? What target am I focusing on? Now, back behind the decision line, I will decide, okay, on this particular shot, I'm going to feel, you know, a really solid balance throughout my swing. So that would be the only thing that I think about when I cross that line. And instead of, and none of you have to admit this, don't worry, I won't ask you to admit, but sometimes I think people cross that line with a really low level of commitment, and then they end up just kind of being like, oh, I hate this hole, I always hit it over there, you know, I always hit that person's house over there. Well, if you think I always hit the person's house, your next ball is probably going to go to the house, because wherever your focus goes, your energy will also go there as well.
Yeah. And so Megan's talking about really separating the two. So imagine you've just had a lesson that is very think box. So like they're giving you ideas. It's why I think a practice swing is so important, because you can do that in your think box. You make the swing and you go, oh, that felt good. When I step in to hit, I only think about, can I match that practice swing? And when I had my college team, it's actually surprising that the better a golfer gets, you never catch your expectations. It's just not a thing that happens in golf. You could say it doesn't ever happen in life, but you never catch those expectations. So the better you get, the better you want to be. And there's no better example of that than Tiger Woods in 2000. Probably arguably the greatest season, to 2000 to 2001, gets the Tiger Slam. His iron play, from a statistical standpoint, was twice as good as the number 2 person on the tour. That's how much better Tiger was. And what did he do when he got a new coach?
Yeah, just redid the swing, and everyone thought he was crazy.
So, but it shows you that you never catch up to your you'll never go, oh, this is it for me.
Yeah. But you know, you say expectations, and I think one of the best ways that you can play better right away onto the course and get all this transfer is to be, I don't want to say like realistic with the expectations, but it's just understanding, what are my expectations? Because I have a great student that's on here, and she just said, hey, are you talking about me here? Well, one thing that we did talk about is that I said, what would make you happy when you went out and played? And she said, well, you know what? That's a good point. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. And that's what I want you guys all to think about, is that when you go and play, what are your expectations when you go out there? Is it, I want to hit every shot well, because you're setting yourself up for a very frustrating day if that's the case. My expectation when I go and play, and we try to play as much as we can together.
Is
We
to beat Steve. That's Megan's
I
expectation.
like beating Steve,
And
but
she does.
but
It's a bad example, Megan.
my expectation maybe could be, okay, on every shot I hit today, I'm going to make sure that I keep my eyes up above the horizon after I hit the shot. I'm not going to sulk on every shot, because that's something that I can hold myself accountable. That's a controllable. Or it could be, I'm going to make sure that I find one thing positive in every shot. And if I don't, let's say I find something negative, I have to counterbalance it with 3 positive things. So that's a challenge that I can hold myself accountable to when I go and play. But the expectations, just, we need to remember that you're always going to have half your shots below average, half of your shots above average, whether you're Steve or beginning to play the game. You have to remember that there's always going to be an average. So just like he said with the expectations, you're not going to be happy with about half of your shots.
Yeah. And like it was it Jack Nicklaus who he said on average he thought he used to hit 3 good shots around.
I think that's amazing. It's amazing when people win a tournament and say, I didn't even, I hit 1 good shot in a tournament, they won.
But what's interesting with, you've just given quite a nice list of things that you think about on the course, and none of them were about everything's got to be out the center. I've got to hit every fairway. I've got to hit every green. I've got the classic one is I got to concentrate on every single one, and it's understanding that probably won't on some of them.
Yeah.
So it's going, look, I want my strategy to be focused on things that I can control. So a classic example is putting. You go, I want to hold every putt. And even at a place like Bonita Bay, perfect greens, especially in season, you're going to struggle to find better greens, but there's footprints, there's different moistures, the grass grows through the day, there's grain depending on where the sun is. Then it's, what am I trying to hit? How do I match up that? There's so many things that are out of your control.
Yeah, did you guys know if you take a robot and you hit 10, the robot hits 10 putts, the robot actually misses 2, I think it was 2 out of 10 or something, because of the uncontrollable things like spike marks, and just, it could be just the change of the moisture in a certain amount of time. So
imagine you've got 2 golfers, one goes out and I can't miss from inside 10 feet today, versus someone who has a swing thought that is, I'm going to just make sure I roll the ball to the best of my ability. Can you see one is completely in that person's control and the other one is completely out of that person's control?
Yeah.
So how are those two?
Which one? Yeah. Are we focusing on controllable things, or
but just think about it. How are you going to feel by the end of the round if you're like, look, I'm doing my best, I keep rolling it, I might have misread a few, so I'm learning, or I might have hit some good putts and they just don't go in. And can you see the person who's going, look, I'm doing everything I can, I'm just rolling it, I'm having a good time? How are they going to feel on the 18th versus the person that set themselves the goal of, I'm not going to hit a bad shot, or I'm going to hold everything from 10 feet?
I don't know if they even will make it to 18, that person.
Well, he
might be already in the bar.
Here's the thing. People very rarely walk off. So
that is true.
So you get to the end, and my point is, sometimes it's not about how well you're doing. Because that person who said, I'm going to hold everything from 10 feet, they might be having the best round they've ever had. But because they keep missing their actual goal, because it's that 10 feet, Tour Pro is going to hold about, let's say, if they had 10 putts, they're about 4 out of 10. So you can see the expectation that it's out of their control, and it's a bit too far. They've made it so they think that they should be able to do something that actually the best players in the world don't do. Yeah,
it's those expectations, actually really understanding where you really should be
So again, going back, so when I had my college team, this is what we used to do on day one with them. We used to ask them, what is your definition of excellence? And then we would hear them saying, and you got to remember, we were UK number one, or we got to UK number one after my fabulous coaching.
Nice.
And they,
nice.
but very good golfers, very, very good golfers. So you're asking them, you're in a room of 15 kids, boys and girls, what is your definition of excellence? And I'm getting stuff like not mishitting, you know, hitting all the fairways, you know, or maybe they'll give me a tour stats. They'll go, wow, it's hitting 14 greens out of 18. You know, but can you see they're all outcome based, very out of person's control. So when we used to give them our definition of excellence, which was doing as good as you can do with what you've got in that moment in time.
I like that.
So you can have rounds. And I did a video on this because I was playing in the Southwest of England Championships, a really big event. This was when I was an amateur, and I'm hitting it great. I go up the driving range with a friend to do some wedge yardages. So this is the night before, and I hit a shank and I laugh. I pull another ball. I hit a shank. I laugh, but now it's a nervous laugh. I hit another one, shank. I go, oh no. Pull a 7-iron, shank. They say everybody suffers the shanks once, or at least once. That was my time. I didn't believe them at that. I was a scratch golfer at the time. I'm hitting shanks. And I'm going away to a 4-day event. Shock, I only played 2 days. I didn't make the cut. But can you see my definition of excellence was actually getting around without hitting a shank and not ruining my playing partner's day.
Oh man.
Because just because unfortunately,
that's tough.
I didn't have a game that was usable. Could have pulled out arguably. But I was going up. I was taking people. I was the designated driver. So,
but even the definition of excellence there, though, like sometimes it's understanding that maybe you learn the most in those rounds where, you know, how do you come back from that? And I mean, I just love this year when Tiger made that 12 on, or no, on 12 made a 10, and then came back and just birdie like 5 of the last 6 holes.
5 of the last 6.
I just think that's the better story, is how he reacted afterwards.
Yeah, but can you see it? So in that event, I shoot like 80-80. Clearly don't make the cut. And I was talking to somebody and they went, well, that's clearly not excellence because you missed the cut. And you go, well, it depends, because this is the beauty of golf. We've all got slightly different skill levels and it varies from day to day. But I got through the event without hitting a shank. No bad language or anything, no temper tantrums, and I was actually pleasant to be around. So you go, well, if I can behave like that in a time when I am totally unusable, can you see when I turn up? And that was strange. That didn't last for long. You know, a week later, I was hitting it great again. But you see, now when I go in and play again, I've actually taught myself how to like behave. So when I'm doing well, I can keep that same behavior going. And I think that leads me. So I've put down, and I think this is another reason. So if we get back onto the topic of like why you can be great on the practice area and then struggle on the course, I think sometimes you have to look at how do you behave on the practice area compared to how do you behave on the course.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got to take a deeper look at that, I think, for sure.
Yeah. And I have a phrase, and it's if you practice lazy, play lazy. Because
so true.
Because what Megan was talking about there is going, well, the think box and the play box. It's a really, really good theory. It's something I would highly recommend. But think about it. If you don't do it on the practice area ever, when you do it on the course, instead of it being something that helps, your body starts to freak out because you go from being on the range where you're hitting and going, I don't really care where this ball goes.
Yeah.
And then you go out onto the course and you start thinking about, oh, what am I trying to do? What am I?
And all of a sudden it matters, like, oh
Yeah.
man, wait, I actually have to make this go where I want it to.
Yeah.
On the range, it could kind of go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
But can you see how that they're so contrasting in the way that you're behaving? Because on the range, you want to be just hit sometimes, and think about it, when you just hit, there's a drill where you just hit 5 in a row, you know, that shotgun drill.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're overthinking, you just put 5 in a row, just whack them out. And you're not thinking about where the ball's going. You see how that's polar opposite to if you're on the course and you're standing there, you're worried about where it's going to go, where it has to go, where it can't go. You see how different that is?
Absolutely. And then like another example is about the line on the ball.
So the line on the ball. So this is something that I see a lot of golfers do as well. So they'll practice their putting without a line because it takes quite a bit of time to line up the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So then you go out on the course and you put the line down to give yourself some more help. But the problem is your body, you're training yourself. So when you don't see a line, it doesn't matter. And when you do see a line, it does matter.
Yeah.
So can you see how it's really, my statement's really not about should you use a line or should you not. It helps a lot of people. Some people it doesn't help, but that's a different conversation.
So do you think like someone would begin to then associate like, when I have a line, this is the way, you know, I perform, or like, do they start to associate those feelings and behaviors with the change of the process, or is it just more of just like having it be so contrasting?
It takes you, it's the contrast. So it's when I've not got a line, I can be free. I can just roll it. I'm thinking about how many can I hold? I'm thinking about how far am I hitting this? You know, I'm just going through it. I'm just hitting. As soon as you put the line there, it should help that your body sees it and you go from having a nice element of freedom to this has to go in. Plus, if you haven't been practicing with the line, you'll probably put your putter down and go, well, I'm pretty sure this line isn't right. So if you're going to use a line, you need to practice that way.
Yeah.
That's where my practice lazy, play lazy theory comes from. If you enjoy, so imagine maybe you'll go, well, I enjoy hitting balls like that. Especially like, let's say you've had a busy day and you get there in the evening and you just want to hit some balls. It's fine, but when you play, you need to take that same attitude out there. I used to do it. This is something like to take myself. When I practice on the range, I just look at the target, I line up and I hit. And then when I go on the course, I start picking a spot a couple feet ahead of the ball, and I start trying to align myself up with that. I never get feelings on the range that I'm lined up incorrect. And then on the course, I start getting those feelings. I don't think I'm lined up right.
Yeah.
And it's a combination. It's because it's different.
Yeah, definitely.
I start doing
the range can sometimes, even with the way that the bag spots are put in there and the den caddies, it pretty much aims you. Like right now we're on the mat, so it definitely is aiming. Where when you're on the course, you have to figure that out yourself.
Yeah. So I might be using the mats as an aid, maybe. But the big difference is, look, I'm behaving one way when I practice, and then I'm doing very different. I start doing the Justin Rose, you know, when he points the club, he's, you know, and I never do that when I practice. So you see, so what I've been trying to do of late is going, well, you need to behave how you do when you practice. And it got quite tough when I first started coaching, because I'd gone from being a student and having a lot of time on my hands and being able to just practice and maybe not be that efficient with my practice. As soon as I was then coaching, I used to do a 40-hour, used to help sell the K-Motion and stuff like that as well. So I ended up starting to try and cram a bit of practice in between lessons. So I just whack balls. So you see, then you go on the course and you start trying to behave correctly. You know, I'm going to point like Justin. I'm going to put my hand like this, like Adam Scott. You start doing all of the right things, but because you're not used to it, your body and your brain is saying, what on earth is this kid doing? He usually doesn't care. He usually just whacks them and then goes on with his day. And now he's telling me that I can't do any other stuff.
Yeah.
So you see, so doing the right thing on the course because you didn't do the right thing in practice, or you didn't match it in your practice, it can actually get in the way.
Yeah.
Actually make the right stuff makes you nervous.
Yeah, I mean, well, one transfer training tip that I want everyone to try is when you're on the range, especially if you have a bugaboo hole, one that you just really, just for whatever reason you can't face that hole, or it's that first tee that just gets you every time. I want you to visualize the hole and actually go through and play that hole, hit every shot that you would hit, tee it up, play the drive, see it flying the way you want, and then finish out that hole. And you can actually play a whole round of golf on the driving range. And you don't see that very often because you really see someone working on one specific club, where in your practice you can actually go through your bag and play the round and visualize it. Surprisingly enough, when you get there to go play that bugaboo hole, it won't be the first time that you played it that day.
Mm-hmm.
You've already put in and you already got your free go at it. So this time, the second time you play a hole is always better. Player number 2 is always wiser for some reason. So I want to challenge everybody to do that. As we keep talking here, feel free to write any questions and we'll get to those as we go on.
And that's a real good point. So you see, you're taking your practice and you're actually making it relevant to the course. You can do it on the range, so just trying to hit. On the night before, you could do it in your mind. So the only time you should really do perfect practice, where everything is just regimented and perfect, is when you do it in your mind. The way our memory system works is we can't remember stuff. We don't have 2 filing cabinets. We don't have a filing cabinet for things that actually happened and things we thought about. So a lot of the time we start worrying and we're adding stuff into our worry one. But like I said, it just all goes into the same place. So that's a system that can work against us, but it's also a system that we can utilize. So if you keep playing the holes and seeing yourself do really well, your body actually starts to react and starts basically thinking that it actually has done that. The stuff that you thought about actually happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things that helped me the most when I played in college at Penn State was practicing the night before, going over it, and it just seriously did such wonders. There's a study where the study was how much improvement people got when they just practiced versus people when they just visualized, and it was just crazy. It was almost it was basically almost the same. It was 1% difference.
Was that the free throw study?
Yeah, it was in a basketball study. They had a group go to the free throw line and shoot free throws, and they practiced for 2 weeks. They had another collection that didn't practice at all. And then the third one went to the free throw line and just visualized shooting free throws. The group that did the visualization improved 24%. The group that practiced with real basketballs improved 25%. And then the group that didn't practice improved 0%. So it's just an amazing thing to take that power of visualization and practice and merge it together. Yeah. So what else? What other things have you been thinking about with this?
I like that comment. Who wrote that comment?
Oh, I think that was Dan Adams. He's got some good stuff there with the percentages of pros.
So you can't drive by looking in the rear view mirror. I love that phrase.
Oh, that is good. I missed that one. I'm glad you pointed
that's
that out.
That's what we tend to do. And it's looking, so going back to what you said about your behavior on the course. And I use the word behavior, and when you use the word behavior, people assume it's good or bad. But it's more about how you carry yourself. And it's going back to having a practice swing. So you talked about the 4 steps. So you got the lessons, supervised practice, transferring, playing. Taking the initial lesson, you might have got some ideas. So I go back into my think box. So on the course, I can take a practice swing and I can interact with those ideas there. come up with a plan. So what am I going to do? As soon as I step in, the other thing which we haven't talked about today is by doing your thinking behind the ball, when you step in, you don't need to spend that much time with the ball. You know, you just get in and out. Not in a rush way, but you'll only have to spend like 5 seconds in there. Because you just set up, you know what you're going to do. You hit it. You then judge yourself on how well did I commit to the stuff I was thinking about. And here's the hardest thing to do in golf. And it's the better the golfer, the harder this is you can hit a shot. You came up with a great plan. You come in and you commit to the fullest of your ability, and then you mishit it slightly. And rather than giving yourself the feedback of, well, I did everything right, I behaved right, I came up with the shot perfect, I committed to it perfectly, I actually performed a fantastic swing, and all that happened was I mishit slightly. Instead of that, we tend to go, that was a mishit, that was rubbish. And can you see how that then, the next shot, you're going to change something when the swing was actually okay.
Yeah. You start fixing things that really aren't broken.
Correct.
Well, it's interesting when we did that poll that, technique and mental came up. And so often people blame technique when it's actually mental. Yes. And so often people blame mental when it was actually technique. And it's really interesting to actually pinpoint what the true cause was.
Yeah. And you add to the mix, and it's something that we didn't have on the poll, but you've got technique and you've got strategy.
Yeah.
So imagine if a hole is really, really tight and you decide to hit driver and it goes slightly into the hazard, it's probably a good shot with the wrong strategy. But what golfers tend to do is then they blame the technique.
Definitely.
So you start deconstructing the technique.
Technique gets a lot of the blame for sure. But, many times technique is also needs to be addressed for sure.
Yeah.
We've got some great questions here. So one is, how much time do you recommend between lessons to ensure that you've had enough time to ingrain the swing thoughts and the lessons that you've learned? Far too often, I kind of believe that I see people take too much time in between lessons. I'm a big believer. It's called full immersion. When you fully immerse yourself into something. I mean, I like one of my favorite things to do with someone is take like chunks of like maybe a half day school or a couple of days. I mean, really, the most success is when someone just goes like 3 days like hardcore into it. Instead, what I kind of find many times with lessons is that I'll give someone a lesson, and then I might even hear like before their next lesson, like, oh, I have to reschedule because I didn't get a chance to practice. Many times I find that that's when they actually need the lesson the most, because there's been a little bit of a loss of that connection of all that information. But I really believe when you fully immerse yourself, that's when you get the most out of it.
And you have, so like I've been learning piano.
There you go.
And I didn't practice.
I think you're a pretty good student, though.
Well, you have to say that.
He practices.
Let's just say that the concert won't be in 2021.
And one of the Bonita Bay members is coaching him, by the way. It's great.
But what's interesting is I'm coaching her as well, and we both feel the same so I didn't practice enough. I'd had a busy week / had been lazy as well. And my instincts are I don't want to go for the lesson because I don't want her to know that I haven't practiced.
Oh, so you felt that yourself now. That's so interesting.
Whereas the reality is that was actually when I needed it the most.
Yeah.
The second thing, and in terms of, I totally agree with you. Fully immersion is good. Let's put it down to weeks. I think ideally weekly. Bi-weekly does work. What I then see is once you start going beyond that, what happens? So once you, let's say you're doing something wrong, so your swing there's a fault, and imagine the analogy I like to use is you've got a computer file on your desktop that has how you swing. It has the rules for your swing. once we then give you a lesson, we put an additional file that goes, actually, these are the things you want to do. The problem you get is when you practice, the files start to merge. So the body starts taking the new information. It takes a little while, but you hit a few good shots and your body goes, well, actually, that's a better way to do it. But your body then takes kind of credit for it, because, oh no, that's how I always did it. So in the original file, the stuff that was happening starts to delete what you were doing and then starts putting the new stuff in. What that then does is means when you had that initial lesson, you could feel what right and wrong was. But then as you go further down the rabbit hole, the wrong feeling, what you thought was right initially, that new feeling becomes what was the wrong feeling.
Yeah.
It stops feeling bad.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you just get more.
And I'll give you an example with myself. So I was preparing for a tournament. I was putting really poorly. I put a mirror down. The mirrors you can get.
Of course.
My shoulders were really close. So I found as long as I kind of did like tuck my left arm in, it squared me off and I putted great. Bit like what Dustin Johnson is doing right now, but I was doing it with the other arm. I putt great in the tournament. So I then think, well, this is awesome. As long as I tuck this in, I'm going to be great forever. But the problem is, the more I did it, I started to find that invasive feeling became the normal feeling. So then I'd miss a putt and I go, oh, I need to pull this back. So then after a few weeks, I'm actually now, what was my cure is now actually taking me further away from what I need, because I start then opening. And that's like a really simple putting example. I think if it's a movement that's more dynamic, sometimes you need someone to actually say, look, you're doing great.
Yeah. Well, that's the supervised practice. So making sure
correct
that you're doing it the right way. So another question is, how can you practice shots where, from the example that when we were on the course with the uneven lie example on the side of a hill? So that's a very good question. One thing now at the club is having that short game area is like, there's so many different lies over there. We also have 2 locations where we have an uneven lie board itself. So one's located on the back of the Marsh driving range, and then we have one over by us where we teach on Creekside. But you can also practice on the course itself as well. But I find that you do need to practice those shots, and those are the points where, like, I don't see people using practice swings enough when they go onto the course and, test out a similar surface to what your ball is lying on. What would you say about that?
Yeah, and it's that think box, play box. So we're lucky that we got the GPSs on the carts, and it's easy to have already picked, let's say, I've got 150 yards. That's my 7-iron. So you've already picked your 7-iron out and you've walked to the ball. You stand to the ball, you take a little waggle, and that's the point where you start feeling, hang on, something's not right here, because you're on a downhill lie. So you see, because you've jumped the thinking and went straight into the doing, that can mess us up. So sometimes it's actually, and I used to do it, especially when the lasers first came out, because you would laser a number and you go, I remember one time it's 178. That is my 7-iron. And I was so excited that I hit at this pin, and the pin is like back right. It's a sucker pin. Only a moron would go at it.
There you go.
But it's because I'd skipped the thinking part. I think sometimes and we've kind of done it a little bit today, you talk everything in the negative, because it's hard, because it's tough. But sometimes the other thing happens, oh my God, this is my favorite shot. And you jump in, and then you forget, well, actually the ball is sitting down, or the ball's in the rough, so it might fly out a little bit, or there's a bit of wind. Let's say 100. Here's a great example. The pin is in the middle of the green on the previous hole, 150 yards, and you hit the best shot of the day, and you hit it to inches, you tap it in, birdie. The next hole is 150 again. The pin is right on the back. So it's a different location in the green. You're excited. You're not coming at this in a negative mind space. You're like, this is my shot. I'm going to make another one. But what you don't realize is there's a bit of wind behind, or you don't realize it's a bit downhill. So you hit the same shot and it flies over the green.
Yeah.
You see, then we blame
There's
the technique.
all those factors.
Then we blame the technique.
Well, it's interesting. So Steve, you have your master's in biomechanics, and one of the areas that you looked at was like how to hit your driver farther. But one thing that you always talk about is the variables that you're going to face, and being able to be adaptive to the shot that you're hitting. And one thing I always find interesting is when people are practicing on the course or practicing on the range, I see a lot of like trying to get into like a specific location. And I wonder about that a lot, because it's like, well, how many times are you on? I mean, really, it's a variable game. You're using clubs of different lengths, you're on different lies, you're all these different things are changing. That, like, do we really want to be trying to get into exactly the same? I see a lot of people get stuck on their backswing in particular.
So one of the interesting, it's called functional variability. So variability we usually associate with error. So, the less I move, the more I move the same, the better I'll be. But there's a thing called functional variability. And the best example I can give you, so when I was doing my initial research, I was looking at examples outside of golf, and pistol shooters. That's a gun, by the way. So you don't get a more precise sport. So it's a target sport like golf, but it's pure precision. But when you start like actually checking what's happening with the hand is completely still. So they always shoot really well. But for the hand to be still, there has to be the elbow and the shoulder move slightly to ensure that this stays still. Bit like those, what's it called? The gyro things on so when you move your camera.
Oh, okay.
What's it called?
I'm not sure. Anyone know?
Literally said yes. He's not got a clue what I'm on about.
No, I do know what you're talking. I just don't know what it's called.
So you know the things. I'm just making myself look a fool. So when you move the handle and the phone doesn't move.
Okay.
So it's not sometimes about just removing the movement.
Okay.
And our bodies are really clever at finding a way to make it happen. So sometimes we get in our own way by trying to like over control the movement. When we're on the range, because we're just like trying to experience it, we go, oh, we hit some great shots. And then we go on the course, we try to over control it. We stop our body moving. It's a thing called self-organization theory. I got all the terms, haven't I? So self-organization theory shows that, well, actually my backswing isn't always in the same place.
Yeah.
And it's with the research I did, the difference in where the hands were moving down was a lot compared to where it was at impact. But it being a bit more variable at the top of your swing actually gives you the freedom to find the place that you need to be.
Yeah. So really, like, don't try to be like absolutely perfect. Allow yourself to be able to go and really, even when you go out and play, just be more of a player when you're out there. And so the last question here is, how much time do you think you should spend on the range versus actually playing golf?
Great question. Kind of depends where you are with your golf. So if you want to change something in your swing, you want to spend a little more time on the range compared to the course. If you're hitting a period where you're actually planning on playing more, and actually playing in like competitions and stuff, I'm going to spend more time on the course, and I'm going to be far more diligent with the shots I hit on the range. The Navy SEALs do everything in 20s. So they don't do 1,000. We always think like the military, it's like repetition, but they do everything's in blocks of 20. So you get used to, but you go through everything. So like if I'm on the range, I'm going to do 20 shots, which sounds like, well, that's not enough, but I'm going to go through my routine every time. So I'm going to treat 20 shots like I'm on the course. I'm then likely to go and test it on the course.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Oh, gimbal. That's
Gimbal.
The word we were looking
There
for.
we go.
Thank you, Bobby.
I'm not mad.
That's so great.
I told you this is a gimbal. Look, my head's on the gimbal.
Well, you know, thank you so much, everyone. Again, we hope that we can help you find your buzz on Buzzabout Golf, and we're going to have more of these. You know, what is the buzz about golf, anyway? So that's what everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and please write us and feel free. We have a couple more minutes here. If there's any topics you want us to cover, the next one that we're going to do is in a couple of weeks. We're going to do it on December 30th, and it's going to be at 7 p.m. and we are going to do it on hitting your goals, hitting your goals.
You see what we did there
for 2021. So we hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we did. And we're definitely going to do more of these.
No, it's a lot of fun, and it's getting a little bit of interaction there. It's thank you, Megan. Megan sorted this all out. The boss sorted everything out. Not that it's going to be a shock to anybody, but you spent all day trying to make sure this went smooth and setting everything up. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks. And we, you know, in general, we just love everybody's feedback. We love connecting with everyone. So this is another cool thing. It's so hard to meet everybody at Bonita Bay. So this kind of gives us a chance to just share a little bit of who we are and be able to just help and give back to everybody. So please share it with your friends, and these recordings will be available for everybody to watch later as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.